Allah, oh Allah, Jale Shan Allah, Allah.
The discussion of freedom of religion in an Islamic context is a very important one, especially these days. And there are 2 points to be mentioned in this, 2 aspects of freedom of religion in an Islamic society or Islamic state. The first situation is in which there is one state, a society, which has multiple religious communities. You have Buddhists, Hindus, Zoroastrians, and so forth living under an Islamic state or inside an Islamic society. In this situation, it is important that the adherents of different faiths can all practice their religion freely, number one. Second, they should have the freedom of changing into another religion, the conversion. Number 3, they should have the choice of not having any religion at all. Especially in today's conception of human rights and so forth, these 3 points are frequently discussed. Having the freedom to practice one's religion, having the freedom to switch faiths, and having the freedom not to practice any faith at all. By and large, most of these things have been realized in Islamic history. In most periods of Islamic history, you had Muslims who had the freedom to practice their own faith and allowed all the other religious communities to practice their faith as well. The conversions took place. Mostly conversions took place from other religions into Islam, but occasionally, quite rarely actually, some conversions took place into other faiths, or those people who reverted from religion and chose not to have any kind of religious affiliation at all. The second situation is in which you have one state with one state religion. And the freedom of religion in that type of state would mean that all of the sects, different sects belonging to that religious world, all have the freedom to practice their faith within the confines of the laws of those states. And in this as well, the Muslim world has remarkably has the record of all of different sects, different religious sects within the abode of Islam practicing freely. The Shias practice their faith, different branches within Shiism, different branches within Sunnism, different schools of thought continue to operate throughout the Islamic history. But today, modernity brings a special challenge because the modern statecraft has changed and people's expectations from the state itself have changed. The Quran in Surah number 42, verse number 48 says that we have not sent you as a guard over them. Your duty is just to convey the message. Other surahs of the Quran are replete with verses in which there is no compulsion in the matters of faith, and God has instructed the Muslims to leave people alone in the matters of faith. However, the hadith has many elements in it that may seem conflicting to the Quranic spirit, but in reality they are not. One case in point is the Prophet ordered that all apostates should be slain. But at the same time, the Sahih Muslim, which is the source of this hadith, also narrates an anecdote in which a Bedouin from the desert who has a very high fever somehow superstitiously thinks that it must be due to his conversion into Islam. And he goes to the Prophet and asks for letting go of his pledge to Islam. The Prophet kept quiet. He came back again and asked the Prophet if he can absolve the pledge to Islam. The Prophet kept quiet again and did not allow so. Upon that Bedouin left the Muslim community in Medina, and when he left, no harm was done to him. The important question to realize is, especially in the Covenant of Medina, in which the Prophet is at once the Supreme Pontiff of God and also a statesman, that there are certain ideological underpinnings in an Islamic state, and the allegiance to the state and the society should be there. So you cannot allow different people who actually do not share in the ideological presuppositions of the state to jeopardize the security of others. Even in the modern state, one has to take an oath of allegiance with a flag. And if you give up your citizenship, you lose your right to participate in the civic and political life of their country. And Islamic community in the early days was more or less the same.